Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you live around the world. What do we have here? Well, this was the idea I was expanding upon from a previous video where I'd said I wanted to perhaps consider making the solid strut, hub interface, and fillets to create my dome. In this case, it's the fillets. Actually, I'll just unhide. No, not unhide. Make the struts appear. I've got the solid struts like this in the salmon-y colour. And on top of those struts are fillet pieces with the dihedral angles cut into them. Now, my logic for this is keep it simple. Yes, I'm introducing a yet another component, but in this case, all of the struts remain in their dimensional sizes as I determine I'll use. In this case, it's an example of a 6 by 2 or a 150 by 50, and I'm just representing a circular hub in this scenario. I haven't shortened them yet, the actual struts, but, and this is where the point was, depending on your approach to how you want to draw your dome, I'll just hide these for the moment. The only true common point is for this scenario along the center axis of each strut. They come to the geometrically accurate point here, and all other edges, as you can see here, are going to be different from the other adjacent or opposite struts. In the real world, with a flexible cover, that means nothing. But also in the real world, where we are using some, at times, rigid cladding, in instance would be perhaps plywood or glass, say, or a rigid polycarbonate, these struts that don't have a dihedral angle cut into them can make the bedding of the cladding not lay flat and don't mate up. Now, in reality, a wee bit of tweaking here and there, and you could probably get away with it. But by using the fillet, in this case, I've made them. It just turned out that I was using a 50 by 25 fillet as a starting point. I made certain drawing adjustments, and then I wound up with being able to generate these fillets so that they have the dihedral angles cut in or trimmed into them, molded into them. And as you can see, the distance here in the middle, the peak of the fillet, which again I will hide some for clarity, I have cut the, excuse that there, I have cut or shown the fillet to be cut with the full thickness of 15 millimeters here, and all of the fillets are 15 millimeters in this area, but then they get, it's hard to see here, but they taper off here 2 millimeters, and in here on this side 4 millimeters, creating the whoa, horrible zooms when that does that with SketchUp. No 3D mouse, that's why. But the small, lighter, easier to manufacture this fillet is a better way of doing it than trying to, I think, do that on the heavy pieces of the struts themselves. I think it's a much more economical way of doing things, and I think it's got pluses and very few minuses compared to trying to do it on the strut themselves. with the different fillets, it means that I can, I'll unhide, I'll try and get rid of that, yes, hide and hide. When the, say I'm putting a cladding on this area, it just happens to be that and this is coincidental, it's not common, but the surfaces that I'm showing here and here are true to each other, of course, because they've got the dihedral angle cut into them, so that I can put a rigid cladding, in this case it's going to be plywood, I can put the rigid cladding on here and I have a nice flush neat interface. On the side here, this hasn't been trimmed at all because there is no cladding as such yet in this area, and of course it's the open area of the dome itself, so hence no actual dihedral angle there. It becomes important, it almost doesn't become important in some areas, and we've got a 15mm centerpiece, the height, and a 14 on each side. Only a 1mm, ultra pedantic, but still real angle for the dihedral angle. Here, however, you've got a 5mm and 11mm reduction, so that is quite pronounced, and that's the problem. Some are, some aren't pronounced. You could almost say, how the heck are you going to do this, or what benefit is there by cutting 1mm off of a half of a 50mm batten? That is a jolly good question. Same thing here, where if 15mm in the centre, 14 on each side, not much difference at all. And we know that one because that's always going to be almost flat through here, and I have considered and still considering whether to just say, to heck with it, let's make it flat and forego any issues. Don't know whether that's wise. I can't see a lot of downside to it, to be fair, and in my example I was considering using plywood in this area anyway, therefore I could put a join or something anywhere in here to make more economy of the ply usage. But even on the size dome that I'm considering making, if I drew a straight line or guide from point through here and extend it up, there's only like a 16mm drop, so I think I could flex the ply that much, especially if it will split through the center here, and therefore we don't have as much resistance to that bending. But that may well introduce a reaction shape through the center. I don't know, really, I don't. There's not much difference in this panel here either, and if a more rigid style of cladding were to be considered, you could get away with, unless it was particularly rigid like glass, you could probably flex most like polycarbonate materials over this area. I saw something the other day and I thought, oh, hang on, part of my problem is, my building background is that we tend to by necessity overbuild, because we have to guarantee a structure for depending on the part of it, like for a structure, the structural integrity has to have a guarantee or warranty period of like 50 years, or there's a clawback issue there. Some warranty periods are, as I close the door and leave the job, well, that's the warranty period finished, sort of, and that's for some builders the norm. But there are other areas where if you use a particular product, they have an expected life use and what the home handyman may well accept as, or have as acceptable, the professional builder can't do that, because they know that their name, their reputation, and legal side of things could get them into trouble if they under construct something. This is not that scenario. In this case, it's for me, for my own use, and I'm not selling them, so that's no issue there. And I saw something the other day, and it was an ad for, oh god, it was like either AliExpress or Temu or something like that, and I can hear people's teeth grinding on some of that. But they're actually using a polycarbonate roll, kind of like a film, but much heavier than just like a agricultural plastic where you'd stretch it over a hoop greenhouse or some such, but it was much lighter than the polycarbonate that I normally think of using. So it might have been a roll of 1.5 mil maybe polycarbonate, and I thought, oh, that's exactly what you want for these sort of structures, or probably could use for these sort of structures. They might have a little bit of bellying in here, but there's no reason why you can't put a little bit of intermediate bracing, which Paul Robinson says it's in the way he refers to it, it's a quasi higher frequency, because you're breaking the triangles into smaller sections. This main triangle stays the same, but you're putting little divisions into it, and I thought, well, that could accommodate that thinner polycarbonate material. Anyway, I digress somewhat. Considering the little difference here may mean that I don't have to worry too much in the dihedral angle arena here or here, but everywhere else I do. So I thought, well, to heck with it, might as well do it properly. Jig this up, run a scribe mark along it, and whip a mil off of each side, and be done with, and know that you're doing it correctly. I'm shaking my head when I'm saying that, because I can just see the lack of need to do that. But we're making a dome. It's got to look like a dome. It's got to have lines in it. Crikey. Otherwise, it's not really a geodesic type dome, is it? Anyway, that is the idea here. They're thin enough to be... They're still thick enough to be... not going to cause you problems. They're robust in this sort of thickness. Go a little bit thinner and you might start having some issues of it warping or just not looking quite right. This is a little bit, it's a guess. I've done a lot of this sort of thing in the past, or not this sort of thing, but in the past, and if you go too light, you have issues of stability in the material. Go too heavy and it's just like unnecessary. So there we go. And of course you trim it to whatever size you need. You may want to try and do all the angles. Unnecessary, because it's not going to be really seen. And besides which, I've yet to decide whether the hubs like this will be used, and whether they need to gather at this point. The beauty of this is that it covers the hub surface, so if you were to stretch a fabric-y type material over top, just nicking these with little corners off, smoothing it down, would mean that it supports and stops abrasion that sometimes you see people trying to counter if your material isn't robust enough to counter that sort of chance of abrasion in this area or wear. Now, this is probably suitable for another video, but I saw a guy, a couple, making their dome, and they had the hub like this, and all they used to hold it together was metal straps. Now, I've seen this many times, but it was interesting because this was the first time that it was being used in a dome of this type. Seen it many times where it's a full geodesic dome, but the hub with the strap that comes up on the inside of the metal tube bends over, and they popped, say, 4 wood screws in the top here. They bent it around the bottom, 4 or 5 screws in the bottom, and I'm thinking, well, I don't know how that's going to perform. Well, I watched the video, and as they were doing it, I was getting more and more impressed with it, and a little bit of my concern for the stress in this area was kind of going away. Kind of. Until he grabbed one of the struts, I don't know which one it was, and put a bit of load on it, to be fair, and you could see some flexion in it and go, whoa, that is where you have the problem. It was a dome that had a fabric cover over it being pulled down, and I'm good, but the strength was not there. It was flexing naturally the whole structure, not much, to be fair. And would it be sufficient? Well, for their purposes, hell yeah, it would have been. But again, my paranoia says it's got to be a lot more rigid than that. Thank you very much. And it's understandable, because the strap was not attached to the hub. Had it been somehow attached, I think a lot of that flex might have gone away, because the little bit of flex here, etc. can add up. But I was actually still, to be fair again, I was quite impressed with the end result. And a little bit of fine tuning might well mean that it would be a lot more rigid than the way that they used it. In fact, if you I'll pause there, just wait there, and I'll be right back. Okay, I found the picture, the photo. Okay, let's see if we can make sense of that. This is it here, and you can see that this probably was 100 by 50, 4x2s. There's not much of a strap on either side, probably at most 2 inches, 50mm, and it's got the screws in it, which I wouldn't expect them to be all that long, and they've just bent them around the inside of the steel pipe and made the dome. Hey presto, it works, but it looks particularly ugly. And this area would be, as I was saying, the area of wear, or the potential for abrasion. But it worked, and I consider this super not the right way to do it. It's too light, but the damn thing worked. So they've got their building made, and they're probably happy with it, and I'm still talking about it on these videos. So well done them. So I'll delete that, and that's where this comes in. That sort of same scenario. Pop your battens over top. It's all taken care of. The issue has been resolved. Again, you don't need these fillets for a fabric type cover, or plastic or vinyl or whatever, tarpaulin type cover. They're irrelevant. But yeah, anyway, tossing over the ideas as they pop into my mind. Again, as I've said in the past, I'm exorcising those demons that if in the back of your mind. But this is, I think, a step forward if you need to have rigid cladding. The idea being, of course, is that we put that, and we 10 meters, and we put that, and that 5 meters, and you wind up with that. So you've got the light coming in through the opening, the door opening, and these are the lights, of course, which would be, okay, I'll do it. I know you didn't ask, but I'll do it anyway. So therefore we have this style of dome. Quite nice underneath, solid on top. Of course you could reverse that and make that the translucent area, and these areas here the opaque areas, or whatever. But this would be also easy to make waterproof or weather resistant. Two different words in the building industry. A submarine has to be waterproof. Oh dear. Anyway, any cladding that comes across here can be made watertight across here through sealants, high performance sealants, and over flashings if necessary, and extending the, let's just say, the surface of the upper cladding out over the lower cladding means that you get a natural watershed, a shingle fashioned overlap to help with your waterproofing, weatherproofing. Got to get the terminology right. So that combination of opaque up here, translucent down here, probably is not a bad idea. Also, if this were to be semi-rigid or rigid, it means that a flashing can be put over onto the dihedral angle, and more chances of having a weather-tight seal on that than if it was the dihedral angle fillets weren't there. That's my thinking. Rightio, that is a video that was going to take 5 minutes and went 4 times as long, so oh well, too bad. But I've covered quite a bit of area, and I think that's a nice little detail. And this is the thing, I can make the information more easily understood. I'll probably make a video showing how I got those fillets, because there is a little bit of a process in it, to be fair. And I can show you, I'll make, this is exactly what I'll do. I'll make another video showing exactly what the process was to get those fillets, because it's not, once you see it, it will be intuitive. Getting there is not always intuitive, and you'll go through processes that are, the word of the week of course is problematic, and we want to try and avoid problems at every turn of the design process. Okay, that's it. Better wander off. It's getting late. I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.